Hey guys, before we get started with the episode, I just have two announcements to make. One, I have the Jibs Journal is out now. I send a weekly journal through email every single week that covers episode highlights, tips and tricks that the entrepreneurs in the show have gone over, and just other cool things that are happening. If you're interested in being subscribed to that journal, the link is in the description. The second announcement is I've released a course. So the course is how to crowdfund for your passion project, your side hustle. I crowdfunded over $65,000 in less than 90 days through my organization called Research Detroit. And the class is going to cover, the nitty-gritty details on how I did that, how I delegated the tasks with my team, the templates, the samples. It goes into full detail on how to run an effective crowdfunding campaign. So if you're interested in taking that course, the link is in the description as well.
It's just about getting up and doing it and finding the time, finding the people, and making it happen.
You take control and you say, okay, this needs to be done, and you do it.
And you're never ready to start a business. You either do it or you don't.
Welcome to the Jibs Podcast, showcasing Detroit's movers and shakers, bringing you stories that reveal the gusto and grit that's long defined the city and its people. Together, we'll uncover the history and direction of the Motor City, one voice at a time. This is the Jibs Podcast with Jibran Ahmed.
So how has Detroit Horsepower impacted you personally?
That's something to think about. Nobody's never asked me that question, but I don't think it's the Detroit Horsepower. The Detroit Horsepower is a collective, because one thing I realize is that we are all Detroit Horsepower. So when you say, how is Detroit Horsepower affecting me, it makes it seem like Detroit Horsepower is different from myself and different from the children. We are all Detroit Horsepower. And like I always say, there's no power better than horsepower. So these horses and the children, David Silver, Kelsey, Yvonne, if it wasn't for all these pieces coming together, then I wouldn't be changing, and how I'm changing is crazy because of the perks, the character traits, perseverance, empathy, responsible risk-taking, self-control, and confidence. Like, these are the things that it's making me practice what I'm preaching, because I have to tell the kids to stop running, and then I have to stop running, and then I have to, just the simple things are like that. Life is easier than what it looks like, but harder than what it seems. And those simple things about life, just something small, or just telling the kid to sit up like a queen or sit up like a king when they're on the horse, and those call me on the phone, those little things, that showing them how to hold the reins, those little things about life, and those little things with the horses, and showing them how to implement the horse riding into their real life. It's pretty amazing. It's profound. Like, this is beyond Detroit Horsepower and everything that it has to bring with the children, myself, and all the other volunteers. And even if you don't know the kid's background, if you don't know anything about horses, the tagging, the D-rings that you put the type of bit, like those little things about tagging, like you don't have to know. You don't have to know. Detroit Horsepower will let you know, and they'll help you, and you won't feel stupid or you won't feel down. Like, it's all love here. And I just got out of my depression. And I'm feeling whole again. That's the best way I can put it. Like, I'm not a donut anymore. I'm a funnel cake. That's the best way I can put it. I'm not a donut. I'm a funnel cake. Like my mom and dad always say, oil and water don't mix, but if you add flour, you can make some gravy. Who's gonna be that flour? And I realized implementing my energy and implementing my positivity into the children, into the horses, into the Detroit Horsepower's mission and vision to come back to the city of Detroit and have it free for children. Like, that's something I've never seen come, that I think that could be possible. So now actually being a part of something, being a part of a renaissance era of the city of Detroit, and being part of changing these children's lives, and being part of helping these horses and rescuing some horses that could probably become abused, and then rehabilitating their spirits. Like, how could you be upset? Like, how could you not recognize the Most High? How could you not recognize God at work? Like, how could you not recognize that people's souls and people repairing lives, like everything has to do with everything, and best way I can explain it, that this is love. And how could not love can make your enemies your friend, and Detroit Horsepower is doing that through horses.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the newest episode of the Jibs Podcast. I'm here with David Silver, the founder of Detroit Horsepower. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We're here on site.
Right.
It's super beautiful. Unfortunately, it's kind of raining, but that's okay.
I wish the weather was better.
Yeah, but it's really awesome to see the kids interacting with the horses. But let's get right into it. Can you tell us what Detroit Horsepower is?
Yeah, so Detroit Horsepower teaches social emotional skills to Detroit's youth through riding and caring for horses. We foster 5 key success skills. It's confidence, perseverance, empathy, self-control, and responsible risk-taking that are pulled from the research on how character development shapes outcomes for young people and how horses can uniquely influence those personal growth pathways.
Cool. And how did Detroit Horsepower get started?
So I am really privileged that I grew up with horses in the New York area. My mom always loved horses, and she passed on that passion to me and my younger sister. So horseback riding was a huge part of my life growing up in a way that I don't think I fully appreciated how it shaped me as a person until later in life, when I became an elementary school teacher on the west side of Detroit and was working to develop those kinds of character skills in my students because of what the research says. And it prompted me to reflect on how did I develop self-belief or grit or compassion. And horses were consistently the answer in my own journey. And so it made sense to step outside the classroom and make those kinds of positive youth development opportunities available for kids like my students. And also was considering the long-term impact horses could have on our city, because horses take up a lot of space, and there's a fly. You can tell we're at a horse barn. Horses take up a lot of space, and Detroit needs creative solutions to turn vacant land into community assets. So finding the right piece of open space in a community that wants horses to be part of the neighborhood's future is Detroit Horsepower's goal, to build a new urban horseback riding center for kids. And we're moving closer to that goal in some really exciting ways as well.
So can you explain how the program works?
Yeah, so we recruit students through community partnerships with either schools or other nonprofits based in the city of Detroit that send us kids for a week at a time for 5-day horseback riding camps. They're day camps where we're driving out and back to New Hudson every day. Kids learn how to ride, how to take care of horses. We bring in guest speakers from different equine professions, and create plenty of self-reflection opportunities to think about the life lessons horses are teaching us and how to bring those into our everyday experiences. So it's a different group of kids each week, and students that go through our introductory summer camp have the opportunity to sign up for our after-school program, which meets year-round, as we move closer to the goal of actually bringing the horses to the city.
Can you talk about the impact that you've seen that this program has had on the kids, coming from the city and coming out to, a farm and interacting with the horses?
Well, you really see a transformation from day 1 to day 5, where kids come in very tentative and, in a very foreign environment, some with a lot of fear about, what it's going to be like with the horses. And even in just 5 days, they are transformed to be so calm and confident around the horses. They've got their favorite horse that they've really bonded with in beautiful ways. And then to watch the kids that have been through our program, some for as long as 4 years since we got started in 2015, and watch them take on more leadership. The kids who went through our after-school program are now on their own advanced track, and so you see them being able to take on new challenges in the horse setting, whether that's more advanced riding skills, more independence with taking care of the horses, but you also just see a sense of self and how they carry themselves, the way they think about their own abilities, believing in themselves, persevering through adversity, having compassion for others. It's really phenomenal to see.
Yeah. How long has the organization been around?
We started our first camp in June of 2015.
Okay.
We did 2 weeks of camps for 18 kids that year, grew to 6 weeks the next year, and then we had 100 kids go through the program in 2017. We're expecting 150 this year.
Wow. So, I mean, you've obviously seen some great growth in the past 2 years. So can you kind of talk about the challenges that you've faced in that 2 years in growing?
Yeah, so, I mean, my background is, my undergraduate degree is in political science and education policy. And then I moved to Detroit to become an elementary school teacher. So starting a 501c3 nonprofit was something I was not prepared to do, and was a whole new learning curve for me. I say the learning curve has always been 90 degrees because there's so much that's new and so much that I've either, done a lot of research on to teach myself, or probably more so finding really phenomenal mentors who have shared their experience and their expertise and their passion to support my growth, which has been a huge part of getting to where we are today.
Yeah. Did you ever face any pushback on the program itself from people?
So I think that the feedback we get from families and kids has been overwhelmingly positive because it is free. It's something that's not traditionally available to kids in the city of Detroit. And for families, being excited for their kids to have opportunities that they might not have had when they were growing up. In terms of the long-term vision of horses in the city, I think that our most passionate advocates are our kids who have gone through the program and their families, and starting from that core and helping folks who may not know that much about Detroit horsepower see it from the perspective of the next generation of Detroiters getting this phenomenal opportunity right here in our city, and turning something that's a challenge in a community into something that is promoting valuable skills for kids and creating new vibrancy in the neighborhood is really exciting. But not every neighborhood is the right fit for this. We've really been, our goals is to find a site that horses will live, with a healthy environment that's not contaminated soil and is enough space for horses, and that neighbors are going to live with a higher quality of life and not suffer from a nuisance or be uncomfortable with this new development in their neighborhood. So we've been really responsive to community feedback and shaped our site selection efforts. So as we narrow our focus, we're really excited about the sites that we've focused in on because they combine that appropriate space for horses with community alignment.
Yeah. So Detroit Horsepower is centered around horses, and I think a huge part of that is debunking a lot of myths that may be connected with horses or just not understanding horses fully. So can you kind of talk about some big misconceptions that people have about the animal, or things that aren't widely known that should be known?
So horses are evolved as prey animals, so they're hyper aware of perceived threats in their environment. So whatever you're bringing kind of emotionally, horses are reading into your body language, the energy that you're giving off, the tone of your voice, to understand if you might be something that's threatening, or if you're sending signals that there's something dangerous going on in the environment. So if you approach a horse and you're nervous and scared, you're sending a signal to the horse that there's some sort of danger around because you're scared. They don't realize that you're afraid of it. And so the horse will mirror that stress back to you because you're making the horse scared by being scared. And the flip side, if you approach the horse calmly and confidently, you're putting the horse at ease, telling them everything's all right, and they're going to mirror that sense of peace and usually be relaxed as you approach. So that opportunity for self-awareness and self-reflection is really powerful with a horse in a way that dogs can be very therapeutic, but they don't have that same evolutionary psychology aspect of being a prey animal and mirroring emotional states. So horses can promote that kind of personal development in ways that are really unique and exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about advice that you might have for somebody that, one, wants to get more involved with horses in general.
Okay.
But if somebody wants to start an organization like Detroit Horsepower, I filing for a 501c3 is horrible.
Yeah.
The 102.3 form is the most gigantic form, and it gives you a headache. And and that can be daunting because you need a board of directors and you need to establish a program. You got to sell your program to people so that they buy into it.
Yeah.
So on this journey, what are things that you've learned and what kind of advices would you give to people?
So on the first question about, folks who are interested in horses, we would love to have them out to see Detroit Horsepower in action. Volunteers are a huge part of making our program successful. And it's exciting that as I was getting started, I was definitely reaching out to other urban riding programs in cities like Philadelphia and Los Angeles who, in some cases, welcomed me to their facilities and showed me what they had going on, which was a huge learning opportunity for me. And now we're getting calls from St. Louis, Missouri, and Birmingham, Alabama, and Rochester, New York, of folks who want to do the similar kinds of models in their cities, and in some cases are flying out to Detroit to learn about what we've got going on with Detroit Horsepower, which is really exciting from my perspective. To be able to share what we're doing and support others is really meaningful because there were so many people along my journey that did that for me. More broadly speaking, if someone's interested in starting a 501c3 nonprofit, it is a pretty complex process, but it's manageable. There are good resources out there that can give you kind of the step-by-step, whether that's filing your articles of incorporation, establishing your EIN, your employment identification number, creating bylaws, because you already had a board of directors when you established your articles of incorporation, and then the IRS forms, which you mentioned, which when we filed many years ago, about 3.5 years ago, they had recently changed so that there's a EZ form, 1023-EZ, which is much shorter and about half the cost and processed way faster than the full 1023. So if you are kind of on the fence about, whether you want to be in business for a little bit and then file your tax-exempt status forms later on, you can do that, but you have to fill out the more extensive paperwork. And so we had no activity to report, and we were able to file the 1023-EZ, which made the process a lot simpler from our perspective. Funding is always a challenge for nonprofits, especially when you're new. It's the constant, catch-22 of you need funding to run the programs, but nobody wants to give you funding if you haven't run programs. Right. So developing a track record has been really instrumental to raising the organization's profile and attracting grant partners like the McGregor Fund or the Kresge Foundation or the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan, which we're really grateful to have their partnership. But that's come in year 4. That wasn't where we started. Where we started was friends and family and passionate horse lovers who we were able to connect with and say, horses have taught you so much in your life. Would you share that with Detroit's kids? And so the equestrian community has been our biggest supporters to date. And, even as we raise the organization's profile and we're preparing for our inaugural gala fundraiser in November, which we're really excited about, but it's really been individuals that have carried our growth so far, and we expect to continue with, the generosity of folks that believe horses should play a stronger part of Detroit's future. And so whatever your niche is, the people who your mission resonates with most deeply, I'd say that's your base. And obviously you want to have as broad a base as possible, but that's hard to come by when you're just getting started. So you need some folks that either believe in you as a person, as a founder, and they want to invest in you, or they have a really deep tie to the mission that you're trying to breathe into life.
Right. So, bootstrapping an organization, there's a ton of moving parts, and you have to manage all those parts. So how do you stay efficient and effective in the things that you do?
It's a great question, but I'm probably a bad person to ask about that. I put everything that I have in Detroit Horsepower and probably work more hours than I'm like efficient working, and so it's an ongoing process for me to establish more like work-life balance and be able to recharge and come into what Detroit Horsepower needs with a fresh clear mind and ready to tackle the day rather than like staying up too late, being inefficient working on something and then waking up tired and that kind of thing. So it's an ongoing thing for me. I feel lucky to be doing work that connects so deeply with my passions and my background with what horses taught me and my commitment to opening doors for kids in the city. So it doesn't feel like work, and it's easy to run myself into the ground doing all the things, like you said, that a nonprofit needs to keep the pieces moving. But I think it's self-care for entrepreneurs and founders and anybody in the nonprofit space is, I think, needs. That's more where my end of the spectrum fits.
Yeah, right. Well, cool. For people that want to connect with you or get involved or volunteer, how can they do that?
So there's the website is detroithorsepower.org. On the website, you can find the phone number to call. Email is great, or to make a donation is also available on the website. We have a Facebook page where we're regularly posting pictures from our horse camps or ways to get involved. So we'd love to have folks follow us on social media and keep in touch. We've got an email newsletter that goes out every month, keeping folks updated, which is exciting as we do more horse camps than ever out here outside the city while moving closer to bringing the horses to Detroit. So we'd love to keep folks updated and follow us on this journey.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, David.
Thanks, Gibran.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody watching and listening, until next time, stay tuned.